The auto industry is on the brink of a massive all-electric transition. Currently, all the legacy manufacturers are scrambling in order to develop their own version of an affordable, long-range CUV-type vehicle in order to get consumers out of their gas-powered SUVs. Now, one manufacturer that has been particularly killing it in all the ICE segments has been the Koreans. I'm talking about Hyundai, I'm talking about Kia, and Genesis. And today I'm out here in San Diego, California to drive the newest member of the Hyundai family. This is the brand new 2022 Hyundai Ioniq 5. It's built off of a dedicated all-electric platform. It offers over 300 miles of range, and Hyundai says because it's built on the 800-volt architecture, it'll be able to DC fast charge to 80% in as little as 15 minutes. So if you guys are in the market for a long-range, affordable CUV-type vehicle, are the Koreans about to completely shake up the affordable long-range EV segment? That's what we're here to find out. So we've known about the Ioniq 5 for some time now, and this vehicle has already been on sale in other markets for a few months. However, today we are finally driving the US spec cars. As you can see, this particular one here is the fully optioned limited trim with the dual motor setup, which means it has all-wheel drive. It has two electric motors, one powering the front and one powering the rear. Now, before we go into the specs of this vehicle, let's of course talk about the styling, because how could you not mention the styling of this really attractive and uniquely styled retro modern crossover? Now, it's crossover with an asterisk because this vehicle very much is more like a hot hatch or a hatch to me. It barely sits a little bit higher off the ground. However, it is a lot bigger than your typical hatchback. Now, the first thing, of course, I want to talk about is the styling, because this vehicle here has a design that's really going to stand out. Out on the road here, it attracts a ton of attention, of course, with the pixel headlights that come standard. These are full LED headlights, as you can see, with an LED daytime running light, LED turn signals, LED low and high beams. And then you can see the front fascia. This particular one here is painted in lucid blue. It's actually a rather interesting name for the blue, but it's an attractive color. It goes well, of course, with the silver accents. There is no, of course, opening here for the grille. This is just a completely closed off black plastic panel, of course, with the large Hyundai logo. A lot of the sensors for their Hyundai Safety Sense system is all going to be integrated well. In fact, I can't even see any of the sensors here at the front fascia. There is the typical camera in the windshield, but Hyundai's done a really good job of making this vehicle stand out in a great way. It looks very retro modern. In fact, they took a lot of design cues here from the original Hyundai Pony, which was the very first production car they offered here in America. Now, of course, looking at the rest of the side profile, this is where you're really going to notice that the vehicle looks a lot smaller, at least on pictures and on camera. Hyundai says because it's built off of their eGMP platform, it has the longest wheelbase of all of their vehicles in their portfolio at 118 inches long. Its overall length is around 182 inches long, so this is about the same size as something like the Hyundai Tucson, a compact crossover SUV. However, with under 6 inches of ground clearance, it very much rides more like a car as opposed to a crossover type vehicle. Now, of course, let's talk about the wheels. This limited grade comes with the largest wheel that Hyundai has ever offered on an electric vehicle. It's a 20-inch wheel wrapped in Michelin Primacy Touring all-season tires. The tires themselves are 235 width. And they are a pretty nice sized tire. They fill out the wheel wells nicely. The kind of pixelated shape and the geometric shape is kind of integrated into the wheels. These are what Hyundai calls a more aero designed wheels. And because it's a crossover, you have the cladding along the side. Although I like how it's kind of painted a silver gray color as opposed to being an unpainted, unfinished black plastic. You have side mirror indicators here, which are LED. You have cameras all around the vehicle that goes with their full 360 camera. And then you can see my tester has a nice panoramic glass roof, which is optional. You can get it, I believe, on the SEL trims and up. Which again lets in a lot of light. The roof panel, however, does not open. The other thing I want to show you guys, the door handles. You can see the door handles have like this pop-out style. When the vehicle is locked, they actually will retract into the body and give you that flush look. I think Ford actually did a little bit better with the door handles, or the lack thereof, but this is a much better design to me versus what Tesla does on the Model 3 and of course the Model Y. All Ioniq 5s have an all-independent four-wheel suspension, which is great. And then, as I mentioned earlier, this one here is the all-wheel drive version. Now, looking at the rear of the vehicle, you can see very interesting design cues. Again, you have the same theme here with the pixel themed LED taillights, which are full LED. You can see it says Ioniq 5 spelled here at the center, or right in the center of the tailgate. You have more of that silver trim. And then down here, you can see there's a subtle little H-track badge. That's how you're going to know this one is the dual motor all-wheel drive version. And then, of course, because it's all electric, there's parking sensors here, no visible exhaust tips. Now, I do want to show you guys the cargo area. Hyundai finally has some figures for us there. With the second row seats up, there's no third row obviously available. You get 27.5 cubic feet of space. There is some pretty cool underseat or underfloor storage over here, although this floorboard actually completely comes off. You can fit the charger over there, the mobile charger. And then if you want to fold down the second row seats, which you have to do from the side of the vehicle, there's no release back here. It expands it to just under 60 cubic feet, which is again, pretty competitive, but not quite as roomy as something like the Tesla Model Y. So obviously the exterior of the Ioniq 5 stands out in a very good way, but what about the interior? This is where a lot of EVs have a very unique design compared to a gas-powered vehicle, and Hyundai also kind of went with that same route. When I get in, the step-in height feels more like a hatchback, regular car as opposed to an SUV. As I get in and shut the door has a nice solid sounding thunk, so that gives you a great first impression of quality. Now here's the key fob for the vehicle. You guys have seen this key. It also includes their smart park feature where you can move the vehicle forward and back or basically to try to get it out of a tight parking spot. Hyundai also does offer their digital key, which I believe still only currently works on Android products for now. But it does offer you connection via their BlueLink app. Now, to start the vehicle up, there's a start-stop button over here, right where you'd expect it to be, which is nice because the steering wheel doesn't block it at all. And then when you turn the vehicle on, you can see you're greeted with these two massive 12-inch displays. In fact, I think the displays look fantastic. Hyundai says the clarity and the resolution and the brightness is so intense that it doesn't require an actual hood. So that's why the screens kind of sit right upright, and they look fantastic. I also like kind of like the gray-white background that you have with the screen. I mean, some of you may say that I wish Hyundai had, made this just one continuous large screen, but I'm actually okay with the look because you have two massive 12-inch displays that form one big display, and you even have some speaker here at the end with the premium stereo system. In terms of the materials, you can see this is a soft touch injection molded plastic with some stitching. Same thing right here on the door armrest pads. More of that pixelated theme here that you'll find on the door panels on the lower part over here with this interesting recycled look material on the actual door panel. You have metal accents for the door handles and the power window controls, where all the windows are one-touch automatic up-down for all four, which is something that I expect. The steering wheel, as you can see, looks pretty interesting. This vehicle does have a heated wheel and heated and ventilated seats, which is nice. You typically don't find vented seats in the segment. And then my tester here, being the Limited, also has two-way position memory with like a 12-way power adjustment. The wheel itself, you can see, is manual tilt and telescoping. It offers a good amount of adjustability. And the transmission selector, which I'll talk about in a second, is mounted right there on the column. The one thing you're going to notice here, there is no Hyundai logo here. Instead, it just has these four square dots that don't light up, which makes it look, I guess, very minimalistic. The horn sounds pretty typical. It doesn't sound puny, which is nice. But the wheel, I like it with its two-spoke design and then the flat bottom design here. You also have paddles on the back of the wheel that controls the level of regen, which we'll talk about later on in the driving scene. Now over here on the dash, you can see it also has a soft touch injection molded plastic, sort of soft, with this kind of fake stitching. This right here is hard touch plastic. This right here is also slightly padded. There's a massive augmented reality heads-up display here on my tester, which will overlay directions, kind of like what Mercedes does with their augmented reality GPS, which is nice. That was kind of unexpected in this segment. And over here you can see you have touch controls here for the climate. You have physical hard controls here for a tuning and a volume and physical buttons, which is nice. And then, of course, when you go over here, this is what Hyundai's latest infotainment system looks like. It does include Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. However, it is not wireless. It's still a wired connection, which I wish Hyundai would just do a wireless one. There's what the CarPlay looks. You can see it takes up the entire screen. The resolution is fantastic. It's very quick and snappy. You can also change it to do a split screen if you'd like. Going back to the regular Hyundai display, there's what the GPS looks like. It's pretty similar to other Hyundai products. There's also an EV mode here that shows you your range. It shows you your energy consumption. It also shows you some charging indicators. We'll talk about that, of course, later on. And then seat controls, you can see no physical controls. All of them are right here on the screen. If you want to turn on the heated wheel or turn on the heated and cooled seat, you have to go to the actual touch control over here, which I kind of wish Hyundai had did just a physical control. That would have been nice. But again, it kind of goes with the futuristic theme. The gear selector right here is a little confusing because obviously you're not used to this being here and it's kind of close to the windshield wiper stock. But if I put the vehicle, if I twist it this way, it goes into drive. Twist it back, it goes into reverse. You can see there's the full top-down 360 camera, which also offers this really impressive view. This is what I typically expect to find in luxury brands. It also has their automatic parking assist system with parking sensors. That all looks fantastic, very unexpected, high quality graphics and resolution. So the tech in this vehicle is super impressive. And of course, Hyundai will offer things like over-the-air updates, which is great. And then of course, you'll probably notice a couple other things. The center console here, you can see massive. It also slides open, or it flips up, and then you can also open it up and give you a little bit of storage in there. Your wireless phone charging pad is right here. It's all the way down here. You can see there are 2 USB ports, another USB, so a total of 3 USBs. And then for those of you who want to adjust this, Hyundai gives you the option to slide this console back, where you can slide it back and give you more storage over here, or slide it up to give passengers in the back more space. That's a really cool feature. Again, it adds to the open and airy functionality of this cabin. And for those of you who like to take naps in your car, which Hyundai actually expects you to do if you're going to be charging this vehicle, they offer a feature where I can completely recline the front seats here. And there's also a function here that gives me a built-in ottoman. So there's a little button over here, and if I push that, you can see an ottoman kind of starts to come out, where that's the most that it comes out. But if I adjust the seat a little bit more and recline it, it basically gives me the ability to take a nap back here, which is pretty cool. It's actually surprisingly comfortable. I think the seats are really comfortable and supportive. They don't really hug you in place that much for bolstering, but you can see it's got the pixel theme over here. These are heated and cooled, like I mentioned, and you got 2-person memory on the driver's side. The glove box over here, you can see, is pretty large. It actually goes in pretty deep. It's damped but not lined with felt. And then there is adjustable ambient lighting in this cabin, where Hyundai offers several different colors to choose from, and you can adjust the intensity. There's also full LED lighting in this cabin, the massive glass roof, which also gives you the ability to close the sunshade for those of you who don't like sunlight. So overall, the cabin of the Ioniq 5 feels open, feels airy, feels spacious, has all the right tech. It just doesn't sit up high like an SUV would, but for those of you who prefer that, this is definitely one of the most impressive cabins that I've seen in the all-electric mainstream space. Moving to the back seat of the Ioniq 5, because this vehicle has the longest wheelbase in the Hyundai portfolio, Hyundai actually claims 39 inches of legroom back here. 39 is a little bit more than versus what you're going to get in the Mustang Mach-E, a little bit less than the Tesla Model Y, about the same as the Volkswagen ID4. You can see the floor here is completely flat, so there is good space here for a middle passenger. Remember, this console does move backwards, which will eat into the space. But overall, it has a really impressive back seat. Now, in terms of the seat backs themselves, they actually do offer a slight recline function. They fold down completely flat, but the recline function allows you to get pretty comfortable back here, which is nice. The seats also are very comfortable and supportive. No heated back seats back here, which would have been nice, but there is perforated leather. In terms of features, there are 2 USB-A storage, or 2 USB-A charging ports here, a little bit of storage right here, and then you have 2 mat pockets. Your rear seat air vents are actually located here on the pillars, which is nice. Material quality is also pretty good. This is a soft touch injection molded plastic with fake stitching, and you also have padded area right here. There's also a nice sunshade here, which I wasn't expecting. I don't typically find that in this segment. However, what you will like is the fact that you can close this rear seat, or this sunshade, which will again block out the sunlight if you guys prefer that. And when you close that, you can really see the ambient lighting in this vehicle. I have it set on ice blue right now. You can see it's kind of right here behind the door panel, and also illuminating the surround to the speakers, which is nice. So overall, the cabin, I'd say, is one of the roomiest in the segment. And for those of you who need to put child seats back here or carry full-size adults, it's going to be really nice. And for 2, if you're just going to carry 2, there's also an armrest here that folds down and gives you 2 cup holders. So with any EV, you probably want to know what the charging capability and the range is like. We'll get to all that, but first I want to talk about the fact that when you buy this car, Hyundai includes free charging at any Electrify America station for 2 years, and it's unlimited amounts of time. So in that 2 years, you can basically come into any of these stations. I'm here just outside of San Diego at a Walmart parking lot, actually. And as you can see, this Electrify America station has a good amount of chargers, and they all actually will charge at a max of 350 kilowatts, which is what this car can accept. It's one of the quickest charging EVs you can find in the segment. Now, when you push open the charge port door, you can see it's got a motorized lid. You can also open it up through the Hyundai app or the key. And when you do that, you can see the CCS combo plug actually comes standard. And this allows the vehicle to charge at a very high rate. So with Electrify America, you kind of just have to plug in first. So as I come over here and plug this in, the car will actually communicate with this station on its own, and it should automatically just start charging, which is something that they've worked hard over the last few months, and you can see it's already initiating a charge. This vehicle should accept up to 350 kilowatts, which means I'm at 50% battery right now. This vehicle should go from 10 to 80% in roughly 18 minutes, or Hyundai says it'll add about 60 miles of charge in just 5 minutes, which we'll come back to that in just a moment and see how much charge it's going to add. But I figured while we're waiting, let's go ahead and talk about what's going on underneath the frunk, because that's always the million-dollar question with a lot of EVs. So if you come over here and open up the hood, you can see Hyundai's got this clamshell style hood, which is the first they've ever done in any production vehicle. But there are struts that hold it up. You can see there is a frunk in this vehicle. You actually have to lift this up right here. And Hyundai says roughly you get 0.85 cubic feet of storage, which is horrible. You get roughly 5 cubic feet in something like the Mach-E and the Tesla Model Y, but at least Hyundai gave us a frunk. That's something you can't get in the Volkswagen ID4. But while we're underneath here, let's talk about the powertrain and the specs. All Ioniq 5s are going to come standard with a 77.4 kilowatt hour battery pack. You can take your pick between a single motor rear wheel drive or dual motor all wheel drive. This is the one that I'm driving here. It's the dual motor all wheel drive setup, which means you have a total of 320 horsepower and 446 pound-feet of torque. It all goes out through a single speed reduction gear transmission, and Hyundai says you should get to 60 in about 5.1 seconds. You'll reach a top speed of around 115 miles an hour. And in terms of the range, the rear drive model will go around 303 miles on a full charge. This one here will go about 256 miles. So again, pretty good numbers, a little bit better versus what you get in the all-wheel drive VW ID4, but a little bit less versus what you get in the Ford Mustang Mach-E. Keep in mind, however, the battery pack is a little bit smaller on this car at 77.4, with the Mach-E having around 88 or 91 kilowatt hours. The DC fast charging rate is really where this car shines. It's built off of the 800 volt architecture, which means, like I said earlier, up to 350 kilowatts, or it'll charge roughly twice as fast versus something like the Mach-E and the ID4. But overall, I do wish that Hyundai gave us a little bit of a bigger frunk. The weight of this vehicle is roughly around 4,600 pounds. So it is about 500 pounds lighter versus the Mustang Mach-E. But let's go ahead and really quickly check to see what the vehicle has done. You can actually put in your phone number here where it'll show you a receipt. But the system itself, I want to see how much it's actually added. So it looks like it's already added 2% in just 2 minutes, which probably means we should be getting or adding a little bit right around 30 miles of range. So let's go ahead and just check inside really quick. So right now the car is saying it will take about 39 minutes to get to 100% or just 13 minutes to get to 80%. So that is pretty quick. And when I actually plugged in the vehicle, it showed 114 miles of range. Now it's showing 126. So in basically the 2 minutes since I've been filming this clip, it added roughly 12 miles of range, which is pretty impressive. It's actually one of the quickest charging that I've seen in a mainstream all-electric vehicle. Hey guys, I want to take a quick break to thank you all for watching this video and talk about a bunch of new merch that we just added. It's all about the thunk. If you're interested in showing your support by purchasing this shirt, as well as a few others, be sure to visit the merch shelf located just below this video. Now, speaking of support, be sure to like, subscribe, and be sure to turn on all those notification bells so you're always alerted every time we make a new upload. So we're finally in the brand new Ioniq 5, and the first thing I want to test out is the 0 to 60 performance. Wow, and our first run, we'll try it again later on, but our first run we got 4.92 seconds, which Hyundai says 5.1 is the official time for this all-wheel drive version. Remember, this is the dual motor model. It has about 320 horsepower, 456 pound-feet of torque. In sport mode here, you can feel the instantaneous torque. It feels properly fast. It will smoke the Volkswagen ID4 all-wheel drive. Obviously, it probably won't keep up with the Tesla Model Y, just the dual motor non-performance, but this is going to be a really impressive vehicle when consumers get their hands on it. It feels properly quick. Now, Hyundai does not have the rear drive model for us to sample during this short drive, but that model has roughly 100 less horsepower. They say 7.3 seconds for that model. But the all-wheel drive model is the one that we're driving today. I'm more interested in this. There is sadly not an N version of this car yet. Hyundai will be doing or Kia will be offering the GT version of this platform, which should, again, address that performance if you guys want a little bit more speed. Now, let's go ahead and try it one more time here. Battery's at 73% charge. Really fast off the line. 4.93 right there again. Wow. Pretty impressive. Now, obviously, like Rob has his Model Y Performance and I have a Mach-E GT Performance. Those are about 3.5 seconds, but you can't deny just how fast this car is. This is pretty impressive. And I just realized we had to turn there.
It handles the corners.
It handles the corners. Now, the cool thing about the Ioniq 5 is Hyundai likes to call this thing a CUV, a crossover utility vehicle, but it's a hatchback. You don't really feel like you're sitting that much higher off the ground. I believe the ground clearance is just under 6 inches, which again, you're not gonna be taking this thing off-roading, which you're not gonna really do in any of its competitors either. But you know, the vehicle's in sport mode right now. This is the more aggressive setting. It gives you the full power. It also favors all-wheel drive usage between the front and rear electric motors. And the steering in this car also surprisingly talkative. It has good feel, good heft. The suspension feels like it's kind of on the softer edge of firm. But remember, they don't offer an N version or an N-line version of this car yet. Now, Hyundai did mention when you mess with the drive modes here, go to Eco, you really feel it tailoring back the power. Hyundai actually says in this mode, like there's it floored right there, in this mode it actually favors rear wheel drive. So the front motor will kind of disconnect. It actually has the ability to completely disconnect as well in order to give you more range, better efficiency. Normal mode, this is the mode that Hyundai actually tested the EPA's rating at. Remember, this is 256 miles. This car showed 277 when we first got in. And then the other thing I want to talk about is the one-pedal drive feature. Now, I have the car in its I-pedal, which is the highest Regen mode. It actually gives you the ability to come to a complete stop without touching the actual physical brake. So lift off the throttle here, you can feel it. It's pretty strong. There's nobody behind me right now, but it actually will come to a full stop, which is really nice. And then you put your foot down and you're off again. And the cool thing is you can actually adjust the regen. So something like the Tesla Model Y and the Mach-E only offers basically on or off. This car offers 3 different levels of regen. So this is like level 1, and then you can just completely shut it off if you'd like at 0, and then kind of ramp it up with these paddle shifters here, which is great. It's wonderful that Hyundai gives you, the option to custom tailor this vehicle. But for the remainder of this drive, let's put it back into sport mode because this is a nice curvy, twisty road, although it is continuing to rain here, which is odd. And the seats, they probably could hold you a little bit better on curvier roads like this, but again, this car is supposed to be more of a comfort-oriented cruiser. But surprisingly, it'll hold its own in this environment. The nice low battery pack keeps the center of gravity low. These are 20-inch all-season tires, so I can feel that they are starting to lose a little bit of grip on this damp road, so I'm not going to push it too hard because there's rocks that we could potentially hit and slide into. But with the one-pedal drive, you just lift off the throttle and it just automatically starts to brake. Put your foot back down and it feels nice and fast. I mean, this is going to be fast enough for most people. Hyundai doesn't need to do a Performance N version of this car, but it would be nice if they did. But it's nice to know that this offers plenty of power, plenty of grip, way more than people who are coming from gas cars are ever going to be used to. And I also love the visibility in this vehicle. You can see out of it really well. The steering is weird to look at because it doesn't have a Hyundai logo on it. It just has these 4 little dots on it, which don't even light up. But again, it all goes with the minimalistic design of this cabin, which also happens to feel very, very open and very airy. So as fun as these curvy roads are, I suspect a lot of owners are probably going to be doing a lot of highway distance driving because remember, this is one of the longer range EVs that'll go over 300 miles. So let's go ahead and move over to the highway driving scene. We'll test out the driver assistance tech. We'll talk a little bit more about the ride quality and we'll test out the power out on the open road. So last I checked, Rob and I are in California, and if you can believe it, it's raining, although I guess this state could easily use the rainfall. Hopefully it stops when we go into the driving or the walk around for this vehicle. But I figured I'm going to do a quick highway driving test with this car because Hyundai was touting quite a few things. First of all, their Advanced Highway Driving Assist 2.0 is very close to being hands-free, although it's not completely hands-free, but it does a really great job of keeping in the lane. And they also claim that this vehicle has more sound deadening materials than its competitors, so it's quieter than a Model Y and a Mach-E, which happens to be the two vehicles that Rob and I own.
It's a hell of a lot quieter than my car.
Yes, it is pretty quiet considering the concrete freeway that we're on right now, heading up to the lunch spot. But let's go ahead and try out the highway driving assist really quick, because it's fairly easy to use. You push this button over here, the car will beep, and it shows in the heads-up display. It's an augmented reality heads-up display, which is pretty similar to Mercedes, the directions that I need to go when I have the GPS on. And you can see here, there's this curve that's coming up. It does a pretty good job of staying in the lane, and it goes roughly about 15 seconds before the system yells at me to put my hands back on the wheel, because again, it's not a full hands-free system like Cadillac Super Cruise, there it goes right there, or like Ford's Blue Cruise, but it does a really good job. So Hyundai could easily eventually upgrade this to, via a software update, to include a hands-free function. I also like how the blind spot monitoring shows up in the heads-up display and in the mirrors, and then when I signal, there's also a blind view camera there on both sides of the vehicle. So this vehicle feels very high-tech there, it feels futuristic. The one thing I also want to address is this vehicle also sits really low. Like, I feel like we're driving a hot hatch right now, or a hatch. I mean, yes, Hyundai likes to call it a CUV, a crossover utility vehicle, but it doesn't quite give you the higher seating position that you might find in a Tesla Model Y or a Ford Mustang Mach-E, or even the Volkswagen ID4. I will say that this vehicle feels a lot more impressive than the ID4 right off the bat. Everything from the visibility in here is really excellent. Even the range, this car started with a full charge. It was showing 277 miles on eco mode. When I switched it into sport, it dropped it to like 256, which this is rated at 256. So Hyundai says that the rating of 256 was achieved using the normal mode. So technically, if you guys drive a lot more efficiently, you drive it in eco, it will show slightly more range. So I'd say you could probably get to 300, even though this is the all-wheel drive model. But let me turn off the driver assistance and the iPedal, as I mentioned earlier. The Regen braking is pretty strong. I'll switch it over to sport here, put my foot down, and it actually has plenty of pull. On the highway, you're gonna notice it's gonna feel a little bit slower, but this car has a surprising amount of power. It feels way faster than the last ID4 all-wheel drive that I tested, and the torque is instantaneous, so this company really is killing it. They're absolutely killing it. I mean, they said 5 seconds. It definitely feels a little bit faster than that, and I also want them to do an N version. This car is begging for an N version where you have over 500 horsepower like the Kia EV6 GT, which we should be driving sometime next year. But out on the highway here, the seats are comfortable, it's quiet, it's got amazing tech, great visibility, it's got that all-wheel drive grip, instantaneous torque. This is exactly what I'm looking for, what a lot of people are looking for in an all-electric crossover utility vehicle, and it's very impressive. It's very impressive out on the road and out on the highway. So when Hyundai took the wraps off of the final production version of the Ioniq 5, it got me super excited to drive the final US spec version. I have to say, after spending the day driving this vehicle out in rainy San Diego, it has either met or exceeded my expectations. Just like the Volkswagen ID4, one of its main competitors, this offers a ton of interior space for American families. Roomy backseat, roomy cargo area. However, unlike the Volkswagen, it doesn't come with the usual compromises or quirks. There's something about this car that feels really cool. It gets a lot of attention out on the road, and as you guys saw from the driving portion, it is properly quick. 0 to 60 in just under 5 seconds makes it a little bit faster than the all-wheel drive version of the Volkswagen ID4. However, those of you who are wanting that higher seating position and kind of like that true SUV-like capability may want to look at its competitors, because I very much view this car more like a cross or a hatchback. It very much feels like an all-electric hatchback because of its very low ground clearance, its lower seating position. But that's kind of a good thing in my eyes, because I wasn't expecting to like this car as much as I did. As you guys saw, it rides and handles well. It DC fast charges among the fastest in its segment, and it also will go over 300 miles. The rear drive version will do 303 miles, while this all-wheel drive version showed 277 miles on a full charge, which is pretty impressive considering how chilly it is out here, considering how new the vehicle is. It's been beat on and hammered all day by journalists, so I expect this car to get slightly better real-world range versus its competitors in the real world when owners actually start getting their hands on the car. Now, sadly, this is where I usually talk about pricing for this vehicle, but Hyundai doesn't have that available. It will be available when this vehicle goes on, or when this video goes live. However, right now, as of this filming, I don't have final pricing yet, but Hyundai did remove the standard range, shorter range battery pack, which would in turn have lowered the price of this car. So now in the US, you can only get the larger 77 kilowatt hour battery pack. I'm gonna expect that model to start in the low $40,000 range. And then of course, this model here with all-wheel drive, I'm gonna say it's gonna start right just under $50,000. I'm gonna estimate that this model here, the limited version with everything, is around $55,000, which would make it right around the Mustang Mach-E, a little bit more expensive than the Volkswagen ID.4, but also cheaper versus the Tesla Model Y. And at that price, that is also before the $7,500 federal tax credit. So really, if you guys go for the base version, you should be able to get this car at under $35,000, which in turn should make it a really hot vehicle when it goes on sale this month. In fact, Hyundai says this car is heading to Hyundai dealers right now as we speak. It'll be going on sale in all of the ZEV states first, but eventually we'll be expanding sales out to all of the 50 states, and it should be a really hot addition to Hyundai's North American lineup. But with all that said, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on the 2022 Hyundai Ioniq 5. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.